Okay, the final reason. Oh, I almost cried, y'all. Oh, I was about to say, dang, I'm up gonna cry on camera. Lord, help me.
429 with Aliyah Sharif.
Welcome back to the 429 podcast, where we talk all things faith, family, business, love, and everything in between. I am your host, Aliyah Sharif. Thanks so much for joining me for another episode. Now, if this is your first time here, I want you to pause this video. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. If you're on Spotify, hit that follow button. Thanks. Today, we are kicking off a new series, which I'm calling the Uncomfortable Conversations series. I'll be using this time to discuss topics that may be considered uncomfortable and that are not always the easiest to talk about. Quick disclaimer: throughout this series, you may not always agree with what I have to say or with what my guests have to say. But whether you agree or disagree, let's please remember to keep it respectful in the comments and otherwise in person. As we're going along, or if you want to wait to the end, feel free to leave some comments and let me know your thoughts and how you feel about this topic. So, kicking off this series, let's start by talking about why the younger generation is leaving the church. A lot of these reasons are tied in together. So, I'll kind of label them like my first reason, second reason, third reason, and so on. I'm going to try not to confuse it. I'll talk you all through it. Let's go. Reason number one why I believe the younger generation is leaving the church: tradition. Coming into a church or any organization that is already established can seem intimidating. One thing I've noticed in the church and in other organizations for that matter is that the younger generation is always invited to join a committee or a ministry or what have you. We're told to share our perspectives and our ideas, but sometimes when we get there, when we get in these spaces, we're immediately shut down. Sometimes when new ideas are proposed, the response is often, well, this is how we've always done things, so we're going to continue to do things this way. Sometimes people of the church, especially a traditional church, we can be so set in our ways that it's discouraging to not only the younger generation, but newcomers and new members of the church. Just because something has been done a certain way for a certain period of time, it doesn't mean we need to continue to do things that same way, especially if we're trying to reach a new generation. I have more I want to say on this, but again, it kind of ties into my next point, so we'll just move right along. The second reason I believe the younger generation is leaving the church is because of judgment, or the fear of judgment, and or the pressure to be perfect. So for me, I was raised in a Baptist church. As the seasoned saints would say, I cut my teeth in that church. I did. And I am still to this day a member of this church. So like me, if you grew up Baptist or if you grew up Kojic or Pentecostal or whatever denomination, then you know that there are certain expectations and traditions that we uphold and that we adhere to. So for example, I came up during a time when women, from the seasoned saints, seasoned women, all the way down to the youngest one, I came up during a time where we could not wear pants in the choir stand. And going a little further than that, if we wore pants to church, the younger or the elders would kind of look at you like, what's going on? And I heard one elder say it like this: you have 6 days out of the week, 6 other days out of the week where you can wear pants. Why would you wear pants when you come to church? So that is what I was brought up on. To this day, I do wear pants every now and then to church. It's a different age now. It's a different time. But yeah, I came during that time. There were no pants in the choir stand. I didn't wear pants to church. I was not allowed to. Additionally, it was no short skirts, no short dresses. Um, in some churches, I never experienced this, but in some churches, they'll kind of look at you funny if you wear red lipstick. It's like forbidden to for lack of a better term, no red lipstick, but I do that now too. I'm the type of person now, I just dress how I feel. If I want to wear a nice little pantsuit to church, if I want to wear a skirt, a dress, whatever, I'm gonna wear that. And if those who are part of the younger generation, I hope that you don't let your clothing keep you from attending church. Some people, if all you have is a t-shirt and jeans, then wear that t-shirt and jeans. Wear what you want to wear. But I think we need to stop using the term "come as you are." We hear that a lot. Wow, I can wear whatever I want to wear. The Bible says, "Come as you are." No, it doesn't. There are scriptures that allude to coming to Christ as your heart is. I believe it's referring to the posture of a heart, not your clothing. So I will hope we can stop using that as an excuse not to come to church. But let me get back on track, and I'll share those scriptures as well. Um, but yeah, let me get back on track. Those are just some of the examples of what I'm referring to when I mean like a traditional church. That's the type of church that some of us grew up in. But it's 2025 now. And I think Christians and church members, we have to do a better job at extending grace. And we have to understand that everybody didn't grow up in the church like us. Everybody didn't have those, traditions and rules and stuff like that. A lot of younger generation, millennials and Gen Z and all the other letters, their first introduction to church is in their adult life. So I think we need to do a better job at extending grace to people. It's like, yes, there's a such thing as cool. There is a such thing as, being presentable and all that, and not just clothes, but just in general. But I think the key is to get people in the church first. Get the younger generation in the church first. Allow God to continue to work on them and work on their hearts and minds. And, take them under your wing and just lovingly correct them as we go. But don't just, as soon as they come in, be judgmental and then run them off. I think that has happened a lot. And like I said, as Christians, as churchgoers, we need to do a better job of just extending grace to people. Let God transform them as well. He doesn't need our help, but He does put people in our path to help guide us and shape us as well. Speaking to the part of the younger generation having a fear of judgment and feeling that pressure to be perfect, I think one thing that would help that is if Christians and people in the church would start telling their stories more. Sometimes we see people in the church and we think they have it all together, whether it's how they dress, how they shout, how they pray. We think they have it all together. And I think part of that is because people in the church act like they've always had it together. They act like they've never needed the grace and mercy of God. Once they become saved, once they become changed, they act like they've never done anything wrong. And I think that's a problem. That's part of the problem. The truth is, we're all messed up. I look at the church as a hospital. That's why we're all there, to get what we need and to commune with one another. We need help and guidance. And contrary to popular belief, Christians, people in the church, whatever you want to call it, we have not always been saved. I can be the first to admit that. Or if you're like me, some of us have claimed to be saved, but our action says something completely different. Thank God now we know better. But I feel like if more Christians and people in the church would be more transparent about their past mistakes and what they went through to get where they are today in their faith walk and in their relationship with Christ. If more people in the church would say, if more Christians would say, yeah, I used to sell drugs. Yeah, I went to jail. Yeah, I spent some time in jail. Yeah, I used to drink and smoke every day. Yeah, I used to watch porn. Yeah, I used to be a loose woman. Yeah, I used to be a whore of a man. I think if more people would just tell their story, and I'm not saying like get up in front of the church and blast it, but like if you see somebody that's going through what you went through or that was on the path that you were on and you made it out and you have the nerve to sit on your story and just look back and judge them when you could be helping them and guiding them, that's a problem. If more people would just tell their story, it could potentially help save a life and the soul of a young person or a new member or whoever who's going through the same thing. Reason number 3 that I believe the younger generation is leaving the church. Y'all might not like me when I say this, but I feel like the expectations are too high. As I said before in the previous point, we think people who've been in church or who are in the church, Christians, we think they're perfect and we hold them to a higher standard, which we should be. But at the end of the day, we are all human because we all struggle with something. We're all going through something. And I think the younger generation and new members, whoever, they need to understand that. Regardless of what we say, how we act, what we portray, we all have a vice. We all have some sort of, maybe not necessarily addiction, but something that we're struggling with, a sin that we're struggling with. I'm not saying we should use that as an excuse. I'm just stating the reality. We're all messed up. Again, that's why we're in the church. That's why we're here. But on the other hand, I have to speak to my Christians. There was a young lady on TikTok and she posted a video And she said, I don't want to go to your church if you've been going to church 10 years and you're still the same person that you were when you first started going. Because what are they teaching at that church to the point that you haven't changed? And I was like, ooh. So I kind of kept scrolling and I'm like, I couldn't get too far because I'm like, I don't know about that. Because I do feel what she was saying. She's not wrong. But I don't like to go back and forth with people on the internet because your beliefs are your beliefs, my beliefs are my beliefs. I don't have to try to change your mind about nothing. Opinions are opinions. That's what it is. But again, I just couldn't really let that go. So I scrolled back up and, responded respectfully, of course. We grown out here. We don't do that cattiness. So I said, I said, is it the people? I said, is it the church that's a problem? I said, or is it the person that's been going to the church 10 years and has not changed? I said, because they could have been going to church every Sunday, Bible study every Tuesday or Wednesday. But if they're not applying what they're learning, then they're the problem, not necessarily the church. And she responded, she said, I think it's a little bit of both. She said, she's new to the church. She's only been to a couple churches in her life. Um, and what was that last part? I'll insert it. What was the last part? But anyway, I responded back. And I just wanted to affirm her and let her know that she's right in what she said. We have to do better. I said, because you're not wrong. It's no way you should be in a church, and this is to this point. It's no way you should be going to church or have been in a church all your life or 10 years or however long, and you're still the same person you were when you first started your walk with God. It's no way you should, like, where's the fruit? They will know them by their fruit. Where's your fruit? So she's not wrong. Like I said, I affirmed her. On the one hand, Christians are not perfect, but there should be some, like, we're going to struggle to the day we die. We're going to sin to the day we die. We're going to have problems to the day we die. That's not my point. My point is, if you've been going to church, like the young lady said, for all these years, and you still using an excuse, well, the Lord know my heart. Well, the Lord's still working on me. He know me. You know better though. So we got to do better. The fourth reason for me that I think the younger generation is leaving the church is because of church hurt. Some of you know what church hurt is, but if not, I'll just kind of put it broadly because it can be defined several ways. But just a broad thing is, if you've been a part of a church, you've been a member of a church, and you had a very negative and hurtful experience due to people in the church, whether it was a pastor, a deacon, or another member, somebody, an usher, whoever, you had a negative experience due to someone else or other people, group of people in the church. For example, that can include infidelity. There have been married couples in the church, and one of them stepped out with another member or other members in that same congregation. The other person found out, and then they just walk away from the church. Well, I'm done. I'm done. I'm never going to church again. Some people have other experiences where they may have gone through sexual abuse or experienced sexual abuse. If they were children, if it happened to them at a younger age, molestation from trusted people in the church, not necessarily just a pastor or a preacher. It could be a Sunday school teacher or an usher on the usher board or a deacon or whoever. And it just kind of left a bad taste in their mouth as far as church goes. Other stuff can be like gossip. There's unfortunately cliques in the church. One clique against the other clique. Like, I know the church is supposed to be held to a higher standard, but sometimes it can be like love and hip hop in the church, and that needs to stop. I digress though. Those are examples of church hurt. If this is you, if you are a person who has stopped going to church because of church hurt and things that have happened in your past, I don't know your story, and I'm not trying to minimize anything that you went through. I pray that you are getting the healing that you need, but at the same time, I will hope that that's not keeping you from finding your people, finding your church. I feel like it's time to let that hurt go. Don't hold on to that. And I know some of you are probably saying, well, I don't need to be in church to commune with God. I could do that in my house. I could do that in my car. I could just watch online service every week. And you are right. But I respectfully disagree with you. Number one, because of Hebrews chapter 10:25. I'll put it here or here. Yeah, this is the first reason I disagree with you. And the second reason I disagree with you respectfully is because coming together with other believers, it allows you to draw strength from them, from each other. I mentioned earlier that there are people in the church who are, somebody has gone through something. For example, if you lost your mother and then 6 months later somebody else loses their mother, and it's like that, I feel like I've not experienced that, and I pray that I don't even want to think about that. I can't imagine that. But it's somebody in the church that they can help comfort you through that. If you're going through a breakup, a divorce, if you're a single mother, you're a single father, like it's, you can draw strength from other believers by coming to church and communing with God in his house and his people, as messed up as we are. And I can tell you firsthand, like I said, I grew up in the church. I was in church not just every Sunday, but all through the week. We had to be active in church, and I appreciate my mom to this day for instilling that in me, because it's continued. And I thank God for my mom, and for her instilling that in me. But the first time that I did not go to church regularly was when I went out to college, and now I'm in Ohio. I'm still a member of my home church. But I'm in Ohio. I visited churches here. There's some good preaching and teaching, some great singers, but it does not hit for me. So I do watch online service, but it does not hit the same as when I go home and I'm able to attend. I'm literally running to church. Like, I just be so happy to just be back in the house with my people, with my family, with my church family. And again, to draw strength and encouragement. And it's like sometimes I'm to the point where I'm depleted here in Ohio, but I go home and I'm able to just like be around the people of the church and my family, and it carries me on, it carries me further. So that if you're staying away from the church because the church hurt, let it go. Pray about that. Let it go. And keep searching until you find the right church and the right people, because there's the right church, there's a right church home for everybody. Like I said, not trying to minimize anything you've gone through. But don't let that keep you from finding the right church home. We need that. Okay, the final reason. Oh, I almost cried, y'all. Oh, I was about to say, dang, I'm up gonna cry off camera. Lord, help me. Okay, I held it together. Thank you, Jesus. Okay, we good. We good. We good. So the fifth and final reason that I feel the younger generation is leaving the church. I gotta call it fluff. Let me cook. Hold on. Stay with me. So I see a lot of videos on social media. And younger generation, I've had conversations with them. And from what I've gathered, it's a lot of young people that want real preaching. They require real preaching. A lot of the preaching and teaching today, not everybody, not all preachers, a lot of preaching today is the fluff stuff. You're going to make it. Be encouraged. This is your season. And encouragement is always nice. It's always needed, but it is not always going to be our season. Yes, we're going to make it. We already have the victory in Christ. We don't always feel like it. What do we do when we don't feel like that? What do we do about the spiritual war? There is spiritual warfare. That's real. There is a spiritual war going on. It's been going on for a while now. It's people getting hit hard out here. They're in a spiritual war and don't even know it. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. So that's the type of preaching that from what I've gathered, want. In addition to spiritual warfare, but sin. It's like some preachers and teachers and bishops and evangelists, they're afraid to preach sin because they don't want to offend the congregation. They don't want to lose members. But based on the times we're living in now, when the Bible is Revelations is coming to life every day, we in a new chapter, a new verse of Revelations every day. Now's not the time to be silent now's not the time to avoid the truth. We need to know. And I'm not talking about them, well, don't do this or you going to hell. I'm not talking about just preaching that, but let's talk about how we can endure. How do we deal with urges of the flesh? That's something that that's like taboo in the church now. Nobody talks about sex in the church. I won't say nobody, not many. It's like we're scared. Sex, pornography, all that. It's not discussed. And my thing is, from the youngins on up, there's been exposure. So if you're not talking about it in the church, it's being talked about elsewhere. If we can't talk about it in the church, where come on. What better place to talk about it than in the church? Let's be real. Where you have all the age groups there, especially the younger ones, they're hungry for it, not being necessarily being fed. It's time to get real. It's past time to get real. Like I said, with everything going on, we got the spiritual warfare going, we got the lust of the flesh, we got the, it's all like, it's nothing new under the sun, but this is, it's real out here. Now's not the time to be, you're gonna make it, you're gonna, yeah, but let's be real. Let's be real. So those are my 5 reasons, my personal reasons, based on conversations I've had and things that I've seen, things that I've read, on why I believe the younger generation is leaving the church. Do you agree or disagree? What are your thoughts? Are you a person of the younger generation who left the church? And if so, why? Like I said, remember to keep it respectful in the comments. And when you see me in person, we're not doing that. But seriously, I do want to hear from you. My goal is always to get a healthy conversation started. So looking forward to hearing from you. I hope this was helpful. I hope this was insightful. If you enjoyed today's episode, feel free to share it with someone else who you think would enjoy it. Share my other episodes, share my channel, tune in here on YouTube or here on Spotify if you're listening or watching there. That's it for today. I am your host, Aliyah Cherie. I love y'all. Take care. Till the next time. Bye.